Hi everyone, subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of interesting things. Today we will talk about the mysteries of ancient Egypt. And so, let's get started. We associate Egypt with pyramids, mummies, hieroglyphics, the Nile River, and ornate cat statues. But it's more than just an amazing and unique world. In today's video, I'll explore some of the most unusual things the ancient Egyptians did. Classical hieroglyphics and artifacts, including a fragment from the 5th dynasty of the Old Kingdom that dates from around 2498 to 345 BCE, depict baboons catching thieves and other criminals by biting them or grabbing their legs. These animals were also trained to pick fruit, brew beer, and dance, and they were so revered in Egyptian culture that drawings of them have been found on the bodies of some mummies. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of crocodiles. Their mummies have been preserved, but not always in the same way as human mummies. For example, in 2019, excavations of an intact tomb at the Kaaba del Hawa necropolis on the west bank of the Nile River revealed the mummies of 10 reptiles without the use of resin, which is necessary for the mummification process. However, the discovery of well-preserved mummified crocodiles is not uncommon, for researchers believe that ancient people used these animals as sacred sacrifices. Often, crocodiles were associated with the water god Sobek and the overflow of the Nile. Unpleasant odor from the mouth did not leave the ancient Egyptians without attention. Using a pumice stone, they ground the ashes of bull hooves and burnt eggshells into powder, and then applied this powder to the teeth and gums. It is believed that this method was quite effective, at least for mechanical cleaning of the teeth, but in terms of general health it was probably not the best, as it caused significant bleeding of the gums. The Egyptians also used a combination of iris flowers with pepper and rock salt to clean teeth. Interestingly, it was these people who first invented toothbrushes, made of twigs, or, as they were then called, chewing sticks, using one side as a toothpick and the other as a toothbrush. Members of this civilization also developed their own version of mints from a mixture of boiled hemp and spices such as frankincense or cinnamon mixed with honey, which could be chewed. The Egyptians loved cats. They believed that cats brought good luck to those who owned them, and therefore treated them with special reverence. Moreover, they loved their cats so much that when an animal died, all family members shaved off their eyebrows to mourn its death, and continued to mourn until the eyebrows grew back. Ancient Egyptians, including Cleopatra, took baths of sour milk, usually donkey's milk, to improve the appearance and condition of their skin. Today we know that sour milk contains lactic acid, which is a natural alpha-hydroxy acid. Such acids exfoliate the surface of the skin so that the skin always stays fresh and velvety. In the case of Cleopatra, it is said that she needed 7,000 donkeys for her daily baths to provide enough milk. At least, she didn't let it go to waste. The Egyptians, as mentioned above, were quite clever and inventive. Their method of healing wounds with moldy bread may seem a little strange, but it was really effective because the mold on bread is usually a fungus that produces certain chemical compounds that kill or inhibit the growth of bacteria around a cut or any other open wound. This was the beginning of the history of penicillin and other antibiotics used. Hatshepsut was an Egyptian female pharaoh during the 18th dynasty. The only problem was that she was a woman, and female pharaohs, of which there were only 3, were not as respected as their male counterparts, although ancient Egypt was known for its equality of the sexes. Hatshepsut decided to take matters into her own hands and began wearing a long beard in the ancient Egyptian style to appear more masculine. In artistic depictions, you can often see this fake beard. People believed that rodent bones could cure children of diseases. They tied bags of mouse bones around the necks of babies and small children. It is even said that to cure a sick infant, its mother ate a mouse. There is also a suggestion that people from the lower strata of society used a similar method to treat children suffering from bedwetting. They used canopic jars to store vital organs. Canopic jars were vessels used to store and preserve the internal organs of a deceased person during mummification and then buried with them, each jar containing a different organ. As for the heart, it was considered the seed of the human soul, and therefore remained in the body. Initially, these jars were simple and unadorned, but over time they became increasingly ornate and eventually represented the four gods known as the sons of Horus. Hapi had the head of a baboon and held the lungs. Duamutef had the head of a jackal and held the stomach. Amset had a human head and held the liver. Quebecsenuf had the head of a falcon and held the intestines. It is rumored that one pharaoh ruled for 90 years, if the legend is true. Then King Pepi II, the record holder for the longest reign in ancient Egypt, 9 decades. He ascended the throne when he was only 6 years old and lived until the mid to late 90s. He ruled Egypt during the 6th dynasty. However, many modern Egyptologists dispute this fact and believe that Pepi II ruled for about 64 years. Nowadays, tattoos are not considered unusual, and perhaps this is why the tattoo culture in ancient Egypt is often ignored. Archaeologists have discovered not only tattooed coins dating back to the 11th dynasty, but also images of living women with tattoos of dots and swirls on their lower chest, abdomen, and thighs. Many historians believe that these marks, because of their location, were associated with asking for protection and blessing. It was believed that only high-status women had tattoos. Over time, the tattoo designs became more detailed and often resembled images of deities, which was done to pay homage to a god or goddess. The process of tattooing also had a special meaning. It was considered ritualistic and began with the creation of a flat brush to apply the tattoo. The brush was made of an odd number of needles, usually consisting of 3, 7, or 9 needles tied together. The Egyptians gave importance to each of these numbers. After making the tattoo brush, it was dipped in coal soot or indigo powder and then repeatedly pierced the skin. Indigo soot has antiseptic properties that helped prevent infection after the tattoo was completed. It was rubbed with various herbs and oils that promoted healing and consolidation of the colorants. Using bread and beer as currency, the ancient Egyptians loved the drink and used it along with bread as currency between traders. Beer and bread were thought to have played a central role in offerings to the gods and dead ancestors. Indeed, it is believed that the soldiers and some 10,000 laborers who built the pyramids were paid in beer and bread. The Egyptians loved their gods so much that they considered it a sign that the gods were displeased with them when they were flooded or when they could not grow too many crops to produce enough beer and bread. Out of respect for the dead, the ancient Egyptians built toilets into the tombs of the dead. This is due to their belief that the dead were alive but in another world, so necessities such as food, water, bathrooms, etc. were still needed. Pharaoh's hair was considered sacred and should never be seen. Rulers always wore a crown, a headdress. These specific fashion trends separated the pharaohs from the common people who were not allowed to wear a headdress. King Tut specifically wore sandals with the faces of his enemies painted on the soles to step on as he walked. Approximately 80 pairs of shoes were found in his tomb, and at least one pair had an African captive depicted on the inner sole of one shoe and an Asian captive on the other. These people represented enemies of the kingdom. The creation of hieroglyphs without vowels. The hieroglyphs, although made up of 2,000 characters, contained only consonants. They had no vowels, so we will never know how the Egyptians pronounced their words in antiquity. However, there is some evidence that the equivalent of the letter E was sometimes included in hieroglyphs. In addition, hieroglyphics are considered one of the oldest writing systems in human history. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for your attention and see you soon.